Hey all, we think we're live. We now have this awkward moment where we're like, can you hear us? Are we here? Are you live? So please do, if you are here with us, hop into the chat, which you should be able to in the LinkedIn event function, and drop in a hello. Let us know where you're joining us from today, and let us know what you're hoping to get from our live today with Karolin and Minette. Welcome to the both of you. Karolin, we'll start with some time zone empathy. It's around dinner time, supper time for you. It's 6 o'clock where you are in Germany. How are you today?
I'm fine. Yes, it's 6 o'clock, not yet dinner time, but late afternoon.
Very good. Well, usually in my house we eat around 6 o'clock. So if that's not your case,
Yeah,
all good. But let's just make
yeah,
up a story that you are.
more Italian style later dinner.
Oh, very good. Very good. Lovely. And good morning to you, Minette, who's close to San Francisco on the Pacific coast.
Yes,
How
9
are you
o'clock
doing?
a.m. I'm good. I've had my
Yes.
coffee. I'm feeling good. It's a sunny day. All's well.
Beautiful. So we're covering multiple time zones here. We got Pacific, Eastern, Central European, I believe, with Carolyn. And today we're talking about psychological safety. All three of us have books and work in this realm. Minette, you've also authored The Boldly Inclusive Leader. And you have a new book that came out 2 weeks ago or 13 days ago, The Psychological Safety Playbook for Changemakers. So tell us a bit about the book. I mean, there's so much. I want to cover the origin story of the both of you, which I know we covered in a previous live and conversation we did, but it's such a good story. And then the first psychological safety book, the second psychological safety book, and then we'll see what other fissures and curiosities and connections we go. But as you're listening in, folks, please feel free to hop into the chat. Let us know where you're joining from and what you wish to get. But I'll pass over to the both of you in terms of where you want to start. Do you want to start at the origin story of like how you two said, "Hey, we should write a book"? Yeah, where do you want to start?
Caroline, where do you think we should start? You tell me, and I'll start, and then I'll hand it to you.
Maybe we start with this crazy idea that was kind of the original spark and led to the two books, and how we now wrote the second book. I think that's really a nice journey we didn't we didn't anticipate and we didn't plan for.
All right, we'll do the quick version of this. Now it's been like 5 year journey since we met because we met in 2021 in an online class that was learning to run psychological safety assessments based on Amy Edmondson's work. And Caroline's there in Germany. She's an independent leadership consultant. I'm here in California doing the same thing. We were looking for practical information for helping leaders and teams increase psychological safety in their teams. So we signed up for this class. We didn't get that. We learned how to run assessments and we were a little frustrated. And I said something publicly about where's the practical information about psychological safety? I cannot find it. And Carolyn heard me say that, and she sent me this email in June of 2021 with the subject line crazy idea. And in it, she said, I heard what you said. I am looking for the same thing. We're very aligned in how we think about leadership. What if we wrote something? And initially, when we first, I said yes, and we got on a Zoom call, and we thought we would write something for our clients that would be like a free giveaway pamphlet. And it turned into the first book, which was the Psychological Safety Playbook with the subtitle Lead More Powerfully by Being More Human. And we were introduced to Page Two Books, who was, there you go, there it is.
That's
Thank
the
you,
first
Chad.
one. Yes,
Yay.
yes, yes. Love it.
Yes, first book, published by Page Two, and that in Page Two, other sidebar is that's how we met you, Shed, because your book comes out from Page Two. So we really thought, and I'm going to turn it over to Carolyn for the second book, but what I'll say here is we thought that was it. We wrote this book. People loved it because it was the first really highly practical how-to manual for what can I do. And we thought, great, we developed all this material around it. We do workshops, we do a certification program, and we were all happy and content. And then a couple of years ago in 2024, we were out on the speaking tour in Europe. And Carolyn, I'm going to let you pick up the story from there.
Yeah, we were all happy and content doing a happy book tour through Germany, ending in Denmark, in Copenhagen. We spent lovely days in Copenhagen. And then at the end of this book tour, we really reflected on what did we experience. We discussed with a lot of people, with a lot of leaders, teams in very different organizations and different functions, from R&D and HR, all sorts of roles in an organization, and they all appreciated our first book and they wanted more. They said, it's great, and we put it into practice, and it's so accessible, and it's like little recipes. One person said it's recipes and you can flip it open and cook a nice omelette, and it's all easy. However, it's really tasty and it's really working. However, when you are starting to be consistent with it, you experience setbacks. It's not so easy to do really the work of changing a culture and really fostering psychological safety in a way that it's really taking roots in the culture of how an organization is doing interactions and is doing decisions and so on. So what they experienced, setbacks, skeptics who are asking questions, who are not on board. Then they ask, how can I really do it to be convincing, not with arguments, but with the way I'm showing up? How can I really bring my team along? How can I walk the talk? And so on and so on. And then we thought, oh, maybe we need to write a second book. And we were sitting in Copenhagen in a nice little cafe having tea. Minette didn't have anything to write, but I brought my little notebook and my pencil, and we penciled what is basically now the second playbook, which is really, it's not adding more moves in place. It's really going deeper into, okay, how can we do it actually in real work? How can we consistently change the culture that psychological safety really becomes DNA of an organization?
Beautiful, beautiful. Yes, and so here's both. Yes, we're all flashing books now. So yeah, so I'm hearing that if this first book, Psychological Safety Playbook, it's kind of like your series 100 course,
Yes.
and this is your 2 or 3 or 400, going more deeper into it. I've heard you both say that they're standalone, though. This isn't like a Netflix show where you have to watch season 1 before you watch season 2. It's interesting. Kim Scott, her books, so she wrote Radical Candor, and then she wrote Radical Respect, which she said, no, this is actually a prequel. You actually need Radical Respect before you can have Radical Candor, but there's no such series with your book. It's sort of like, if you want intro and understand, I was cleaning up some notes this morning and I came across a quote I had written down in a change leadership workshop I was taking a part in. And the quote was, 1 pound of application is better than 10 tons of theory. Which I thought was, and like, if there's anything that like captures what you're trying to do here, is you're building upon the well-established fantastic theory, but here are some plays and here are some moves. And not that the creation of psychological safety or healthy, thriving cultures, it's not as linear as following a recipe, but you're at least providing some steps. And I love the plays that both books are built off of, which are these 5 plays of communicate courageously, master the art of listening, manage your reactions, which is like when the recipe doesn't go perfectly according to plan. I'm assuming. Embrace risk and failure, and design inclusive rituals. And I love how the chapters, the plays, are the same for both books. That I was like, well, that's unique and cool. But of course, the contents within are from a different lens and perspective based on where one might be. Is that accurate?
Exactly. Yeah. And you know, you started by saying, you know, that you can move around, and Karolin said that you don't have to read the books in order. You could have both books on your desk and say, like, I want to work on listening. And so I'd go to the first one, for example. I'd go to the first playbook and say, okay, let me get these basics here. Okay, now my team needs to work on this. What can I do with my team? And then in the new book, we have like prompts for brainstorming. We have exercises you can run. We have like pushing back when you get skepticism. So you could use them in any order you want, depending. And what we really realize is that everyone's circumstances and context are different. So what do you need today? and you'll find something in the new book that might be useful? Or do we just need to go back to the fundamentals of what does it mean to design inclusive rituals? I'm going to go back to the first book and then like, okay, now what can we do? So we see them as very complementary but non-linear. And I don't, and I think Karolin doesn't really like the idea that there's this clean step process you can follow to establish psychological safety. I just don't buy into that because it's messy. It's messy, and it's, you have ups and downs, and you just don't have that straight line to the right.
Yeah, yeah. And there are frameworks that can be used to be helpful, but I'm also these playbooks aren't, you can read it in order, but there's also the riddle me this, what's this recipe, how do I deal with this context, and you can jump to the section in the book and take off from there.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would think maybe of this these five plays more as kind of a map that is showing you what are the basic levers you should pay attention to when you do want to foster psychological safety. But then where you go, it's up to you. So you don't have to follow a certain path. You can jump onto the hill or you can go into that valley. It's really up to you what is resonating with you, or depending on your style, depending on your context.
So there's just room for the messy humanness. I think any author or thought leader in this space to say here's the one and only one way to build it is just no, that's just not how it is. And so, I mean, even as I ask you, okay, what are the favorite levers that you both use and have encountered? That's not everyone's favorite, and it may not be the right lever or right move or play in that particular context or for that particular human or leader or team. I'm assuming that's that's a fair thing
Yeah,
to say. Both
exactly.
of you are nodding. Yeah. But just to have fun and go a little bit a layer deeper, as you have uncovered and deepened your understanding of this work, what are some of the favorite levers that you seem that you continue to go back to in your one-on-one or group dynamic relationships? Minette, happy to start with you, and then Karolin, you can add.
I thanks for that. I'm gonna start with the one that is the most challenging for people. That tends to be the one that we all need to work on, and that is managing your reactions. Because why it comes up so much is, this instinctive defensive reaction that we all get when we feel under threat, which is biological, right? Like you criticize me, I feel like I'm being attacked. Why it's so critical to creating a healthy culture is that the moment you lose control of your reaction and you lash out at someone, you destroy all of this goodwill and psychological safety that you have worked so hard to build up. And we have a whole chapter in our new book on rebuilding psychological safety. And we also admit that it's not easy. Once it's been broken, it's not like you just apologize and it's fixed. And so the managing your reactions, when we survey our clients and when we experience it ourselves, we know that this is often the hardest thing for people because it goes against our biology and our wiring. So we have to very deliberately and consciously become aware when we're getting triggered, pause and do something different, and then choose the response that we're going to feel proud of rather than the one that's going to destroy psychological safety. So whether it's my favorite or not, it's the one I have consciously worked on for years and have gotten better at, and our clients tell us is the most challenging and the thing that they really need to work on. So I'll pick that as my favorite today, and then Karolin, you,
Nice.
you get to go next and decide your
Yeah,
favorite.
I'd love to pick another one, and maybe not as my favorite, but as one which is kind of quiet but very powerful, and that is listening. As Otto Schammer once said, listening is the most underrated leadership skill. And I saw how powerful it is if we really increase the quality of our listening. So often, when we seem to listen, we are not really listening. We are maybe not talking. However, are we really listening to the person who is speaking in a way that is really focused and really with the intent to understand? Most of the time, we are not doing that. Most of the time, we are preparing our response. We are thinking about something else. We are still thinking about the meeting we just had, or maybe the next meeting which will come, or maybe we are annoyed because we think, oh, I already know this and it's not true, and so on and so on. And if people particularly leader, but anyone, really increase their quality of listening. There is really fabulous, kind of miraculous things happening. Nancy Klein once said, the quality of our listening determines the quality of the other person speaking. So the way I am listening to you, Shed, determines the quality of what you are then telling me. And people who are really training this and implementing this in their day-to-day life, they are amazed by what is changing. But this also needs requires a lot from us. It requires a lot of what Minette just mentioned, managing our reactions. We need to let go our need to be right. We need to let go of our judgments and so on and so on, to really focus our attention on understanding.
Beautiful. There's so many fun connection points I'm seeing. Both to one, I want to throw some of the speak up culture stuff that I have by you to see how it marries well, because there's such a nice connection with our work from the practicality of it all. You're making me think. My dear friend Leanne Davey just came out with a new book a couple weeks ago. Could have even been the same launch day.
It was
as
the
the
same
as the
day,
two.
yes. We
Same
had the same
day.
launch day.
Beautiful. So Leanne's book is called Thought Load, right? And her sort of theory, her thesis is it's not necessarily our workload that's burning us out most of the time. It's our thought load. And she goes through some interesting stats of the average person has 22 hours a week in meetings, 11 hours a week in Slacks, emails, Teams, just typing messages. That's already 33 hours if you're working a standard 40-hour work week. Plus, I think we toggle through on average 1,200 screens in a week. So in a week, we might also be spending as much as 3 hours just toggling screens, right? Like, no wonder we're all burnt out, you know? And so what I love about the manage reactions piece, so Leanne's thought load equation, I might be butchering this a little bit, but it's cognitive demands plus our emotions divided by our energy reserves. And so, of course, the less energy we have, it makes us harder to deal with the cognitive demands and the emotional experience as well. But Minette, I appreciate that you highlight our manage emotions and reactions piece, because it takes work, and this isn't I'm hearing, in my view of it, it's not a request or a call for perfection. That's robotic. No. I think it's little things like, I know we've discussed, like, if you're sort of losing yourself, like tap or like, wiggle your toes, breathe, like move the reaction, move the focus. And so even little things like, ooh, it's really hard for me to hear this right now, but I know this is the conversation we need to be having. Just give me a moment to breathe into it so I don't like react in a way that I'm going to regret. Like, that's real.
That's real.
That's
and
real.
That's human. And I feel like, one of the things that people respect is other human beings being real, as opposed to, as you said, robotic or trying to be so perfect. So the feeling of actually saying, this is hitting me a little hard, can you give me a moment? I mean, that's a gift to the people that you're with, right? And they'll appreciate that.
And then Karolin, I want to double click on your listening piece, but this makes me think of, so when I was on Simon Sinek's team and COVID hit, and we needed to figure out how to reinvent our business model within a matter of weeks, right? And so many of us were in many of those moments. For us, the vast majority of our revenues were hopping on planes, trains, automobiles, going and doing keynotes and workshops and training in person. And like many people, we had to literally reinvent our business model. And there was one meeting, this must have been, so COVID really hit, like March 13th was that Friday when Tom Hanks got it in Australia. And so we were a few weeks after that, and we had figured out sort of some strategic courses and things we wanted to do. But as a team that was sort of working on the projects that were going to reinvent our new revenue streams, we had made an assumption, I think about 2.5 or 3 weeks previous. And then 2.5 or 3 weeks later, we went, wrong assumption. Like, we made an error. Now, under normal, not so high stakes circumstances, it would have been like, hooray, And it kind of was that, but we had to report this delay to the president of the company. wasn't Simon. Simon was actually on the working team with us. And so we shared this, hey, like good news, bad news. Bad news is we made a mistake, but good news is we now know what the future is, and we actually might be able to work a bit quicker now. The president of the company was understandably frustrated. Not only frustrated, I think angry, scared, anxious. They had payroll to meet. Like, this was hard. This was hard. And her reaction was not favorable at the beginning. But here's what she did. I'm not sure, Minette, if I've shared this story with you, because we've had the pleasure of spending more time in person than Karolin, you and I have up until this point. But she literally said, it was as if she was like, okay, she like pulled the pin out of the grenade, but instead of throwing the grenade in the meeting, she went, I need to step away for a few minutes. And she hit mute and she turned off her camera and she walked away. And she was visibly frustrated. But then she came back 15 minutes later, mic back on, camera back on. Okay, I'm here. Where are we at? What do we need? And I was just like, whoa, how good was that? You know? And at the time, I had a really close relationship with them and we would speak frequently. And she was embarrassed a bit by this reaction. But I said to her, I thought that was so mature. It was so real. Emotions are emotions. Reactions are reactions. They're data, but you didn't let the emotion run the meeting. You removed the emotion before it ruined the meeting. And I just thought that was such a wonderful example of, I think, what you're speaking to, Minette, when you talk about manage emotions.
That's a
and
fabulous example, and all too rare, because so many leaders in that position would have been like, I gotta solve this right now. I gotta be
Power up.
decisive, right? And what she did was the most powerful thing she could. And
Yes.
I'm like so much respect for doing that.
Yeah, awesome. A good chance, folks, if you're listening in, feel free to add your comments or questions for us as we're talking through the Psychological Safety Playbook books. There's the Psychological Safety Playbook for Changemakers that just came out a couple of weeks ago. Karolin, you spoke to listening, and I call it truly listening. So for the subtitle of my book, Speak Up Culture, the subtitle is When Leaders Truly Listen, People Step Up. And my editor at Page 2, Kendra, said, you don't need the word truly. And I'm like, no. Like, we do. Because listening is a skill. And quite frankly, listening can be used as a skill, but manipulatively. Like you said, I think usually our listening is to figure out our response, right? But truly listening, I think, includes compassion and empathy and curiosity and patience and presence and like this wonderful stew of human attributes, not just the skill of listening. So I love that you highlight that listening piece as well.
Yeah, and I love the subtitle of your book, and I'm so glad you left the truly in it. That
Yes.
really makes the difference, and the difference between being seemingly listening, what we are doing all the time, but we are not truly listening. And I regularly in my workshops, when people want to become better with listening, and listening as a topic, I do a simple exercise. Very quick. One in pairs, two persons. One is complaining about a minor issue. I don't know, the traffic jam this morning or something like that, and they are just talking. And the other person is listening. In the first minute, they are listening low quality, not truly, but they are not doing something obviously distracting. So you wouldn't do something like taking your phone and glancing at your phone. So seemingly listening, but not truly. And then the second minute, the other person is truly listening with what you just mentioned: attention and focus, empathy, compassion, and so on and so on. And then we are debriefing about their experience, and what the speakers are telling is so revealing. They know the difference. And the second minute is a world of a difference from the first minute. People, we are human beings, we are sensing this, if the other person is truly listening or not. And that
Yeah.
is really changing a lot in the way we can not only speak, but also think. And yeah, I I'm supporting teams and leaders, and I'm so thrilled to see positive effects of the power of listening.
It's making me think of dancing. Like really good listening is really good dancing, and and like not prescriptive steps, but like impromptu. Because I love what you said, Carolyn, a few minutes ago, that the quality of the listening increases the quality of voice, the quality of the speaker, which is, we've all danced, some of us better than others. But when we're dancing with a partner whose dancing elevates our own, there's that symbiotic, like 100 leaning in. So I love this sort of image of effective listening is like effective dancing, where the really effective listener makes the other dancer better.
Yeah.
Build off of each other. It's just sort of an image that came to mind as you were speaking through that.
Love that. And in our first playbook, we have another metaphor we also like very much. It's from Sänger Folkman, that listening is like a trampoline. So not a passive sponge, which is just absorbing, but something which is amplifying your energy. So really good listening is like a trampoline.
From that amplification, you're saying it builds up.
Yep.
Is that what you're? Yeah.
Yep.
Nice. Lovely. So one of the key pieces in my book, so I wrote Speak Up Culture, of which I say psychological safety is vital, right? The other aspect when I speak about a speak up culture that I explore is a lesser known body of work called the perception of impact. So my theory, and I want to run it by you, and I know we've had versions of this conversations before, but as the second book has come out, I'm curious to see how your thinking has evolved, because my thinking has evolved with this as well. So the two questions that I theorize that we ask, consciously or subconsciously, is it safe to speak up? Are the signals that I'm getting in my interactions, what I'm observing, is there psychological safety? An environment, a climate where it feels safe to take interpersonal risk, as opposed to psychological harm or danger, right? Mm-hmm. People who speak up get in trouble or get, pinpointed or moved to the side. That's one axis. The other is it worth it? And the thing that I've noticed is sometimes it feels safe, but it isn't worth it. Nothing really changes. And so I might go back to that well a few times, but if that well is dry, I may stop returning. The other piece is it worth it? And an idea I've been playing with recently, and I think this is only really relevant when the stakes are high. Something's on the line. Integrity, business results, human life. And we can all think of some of these cases, whether it's the Boeing 737 or the Ocean Gate disaster or the Wells Fargo ethical dilemma or all these things. My theory is sometimes the worth it might actually be more important than the safe in those high stakes moments. Like if I could pick one over the other. So I'm just curious for you of how you view sort of that 2x2 matrix of is it safe, is it worth it? Ideally, it's both. But I'm curious your views on the worth it piece, on the safe piece, the interplay of both of them. Minette, do you want to start first this time, and
Sure.
Karolin, or I'll allow you to pass the buck if you prefer.
No, I'll start. It's fine.
Okay.
And I know we both have thoughts about this. So totally agree about the importance of worth it, without measuring one is better than the other. Because, one of the things we actually heard when we were working with a client, or I don't know if it was both of us or me, but one of the things was like a comment that we actually feel safe, but no one's doing anything with our input. So it's not, so not worth, they didn't use the word worth it, but like, it's just, we don't really feel like it's worth our time kind of thing. So I, one of the things that we address is that in a lot of our work now, we make sure that we include that, because if people keep speaking up and nothing changes, then they're going to stop speaking up. So I think your worth it piece is really an important part. And now I'm just kind of reflecting on your thing about, in some cases, it might be more important that it's worth it. Like in life or death situations, we do take a risk when we speak up maybe, but it has to be worth it, because it's like, we're going to save the space shuttle from blowing up, or a plane from going down, or, a huge ethical crisis with a bank. So I do agree that the worth it piece is very important. And I don't think you don't want psychological safety for its own sake. You want it for what it enables. And that is like, maybe having those very hard conversations or speaking up when it's still risky because the outcomes are so important. So, Karolin, I'll let you pick it up from there.
Yeah, and I completely agree. And I would add another perspective, maybe because many teams and leaders are not in life or death situations. And often it's not so clear what the payoff of what I have in mind and what the payoff is of speaking out loud what I had in mind. And in a way, psychological safety is then amplifying or feeding back into making it worth speaking up. So, for example, one of our techniques we advise comes from improv theater, yes and instead of our default yes but. And what teams discover when they really shift to a yes and culture, people can speak up maybe with a stupid idea at the beginning, and then they yes and yes and yes and in the end it's a very good idea and a great plan or something. But that wouldn't be, you couldn't anticipate when speaking up with this half bacon or maybe a little bit stupid idea at the first place. However, in a culture of yes and, in the end, it was very worth it speaking up. You couldn't anticipate the whole worth of your stupid first idea, but yeah, the worth is created in a yes and culture.
Yes, and
So in a way, yeah, and I'm speaking from experience with Minette. Minette reacted to my first crazy idea email in a very positive yes and way, and it's kind of we yes and our ideas. That's an expression Minette once used. It's really kind of the culture in the team of two we form. And that is encouraging me to come up with maybe things I would filter out in an environment which wouldn't encourage such speaking up.
nice. So, and it's again, it's the quality of the listening. It's the quality of the
Yeah,
open, curious, or
yeah,
I don't yet see what you're pointing out, but like, go on.
Yeah.
I'm
yeah, exactly.
curious.
I'm
It's still
curious.
inviting. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
Tell me
yeah.
more. Yeah. In
tell me
our
more.
friend Rob Volpe wrote that great book, Tell Me More. And that's like such a phrase that we embrace too. And Carolyn and my whole work over these 5 years now has been created through this experimentation, curiosity, giving encouraging feedback, and yes, critiquing when we disagree with something. And it's always done in the way to make it better, which is why I say we yes and each other's ideas. Like I often draft our materials and I really will put out that shitty first draft. And I will just say, Carolyn, here's the SFD, like, give me your input. And Carolyn gives it in such a way that I never have once felt, and I use the word never here really, I have never felt bad about my first draft. I have always felt like there's something good there that we can build on. And honestly, that is rare because so often I have felt shut down. It's like, no, this will never work. Not from Carolyn, but from other circumstances I've been in. And then it never moves forward. The work does not move forward because it has been shut down before you could explore it. Whereas what we do is we explore everything.
Nice. And I'm hearing, Manette, that SFD, that that shitty first draft, you you're still motivated to give as much quality as you can, but it's like I haven't figured out this. Like you're still putting your best foot forward without going into analysis paralysis. I was on a team where we would say, hey, here's my shitty first draft. Or what do we call it? Bad draft, or here, this is my first draft. I made it bad. Can you
Yeah.
make it better? Can you
Right.
+1 it? Which I'm getting is the dynamic that you're speaking to with
Yeah,
their
yeah. I mean, I do. I always try to make it really good, right? So there's less work to do, and I'm
yeah.
I'm kind of a stickler. But there are places where I'll go like, I don't know what to put here, or do you have, and I'll just put a comment in because I haven't been able to solve something, and then Carolyn comes in with her fresh eyes and has a new idea that I hadn't thought of. So that's why I think our partnership is so successful because it really is. it's generative in some way, right?
Yeah, yeah. A few things, and then there's a great question here from my friend Will Matthews that we'll get to. Thank you, Will. Minette, you were speaking to before of it feels safe, but it isn't worth it. Or, I've spoken up before, but nothing's changed. That's what Ethan Burris and Jim Dietrich have done a lot of work on that, and they call it apathy or futility.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
It's like I've gone to the well, I've tried, nothing happened. I'm just gonna zip it now. The interesting thing that like it's really easy to see that the stakes can be high in certain situations. Something that I like to point out though is that we know that our relationship with our direct boss has more of an impact on our health than that of a relationship with our family doctor or our therapist if we have one. And the impact of our relationship with our boss or direct manager or leader has the same impact in our health and well-being as that of a spouse. And so like leadership is high stakes.
Yes.
So if anyone is listening or watching to the recording and wondering, well, is my job high stakes? If you have a boss or if you are a formal leader to another, that's inherently high stakes work. And so I think it is always worth exploring that. Yes, is it safe? And am I embodying these plays that Minette and Karolin speak to in their book of making it more psychologically safe? And am I also making it worth it? So just a couple ideas that came to mind.
And let me just add one more thing on the worth it part, because I think,
Yeah.
one of that futility and like cynicism that comes of like, I've spoken up and nothing has changed. Like in many cases, like we want to bring in all the ideas before we make decisions as leaders, and we can't implement them all. And so sometimes all it takes to allay that feeling of futility and cynicism is to say, look, we heard you. And this was our decision-making process. And I think one of the things that I learned as a leader myself is that the more transparent we can be about decisions, the more people feel like they are part of that decision. So if you gave me a suggestion, Shed, and we didn't implement it, if I came back to you and said, Shed, thank you so much for that suggestion. It went into our conversations. This is how we ended up with our decision. It wasn't that yours was bad. We had these other priorities. Now you feel heard. Now you feel like, okay, I was actually part of that senior leadership discussion. I will make another suggestion. And that can make such a difference between just silence, like I made the suggestion and nothing ever came back, or this is how we made this decision. And yeah, we didn't take your idea. However, it was useful in our conversation. That can make all the difference. So the worth it doesn't mean your ideas are always implemented. It's more about being heard and valued.
Yes. And you can still have someone feel validated without having to validate everything that they say.
Exactly. And just that they weren't ignored. I think this feeling of being ignored and invisible is visceral. And then we really do just go silent because it's like, it isn't worth it, right?
Yeah. There's a... Go for
Karolin.
Karolin.
In Shed, I wanted to come back to this point that leaders have such a big impact on how people feel when they go to work. And I think we often underestimate this. And I love how you highlighted this. And our book really offers little things every one of us can do. And let's not underestimate our influence on others and how others feel when they are driving to work Monday morning, or when they show up in the Teams meeting or whatever. And we can all add so much of feeling better at work and feeling seen and heard and respected. Listening is a big part, but not the only part. So we are offering little things which are doable, feasible in under high pressure situations in whatever context. And the impact would also be not only to be more productive and have better bottom line and so on, but you add to people feeling better showing up at work.
Beautiful. Beautiful. There's a comment here from Danny Wareham who says, your employees' family know your name. They know what sort of leader you are. Leaders rent employees from their families. We have a duty to return them in a better condition, whether they're showing up physically at work or you're renting them virtually. But I love that, Danny.
So true.
Yeah. And then my friend Will Matthews, and check out his title. His title is Professor of Culture. Very, very interesting. So Will asks, here's a question. Out of curiosity, and if time permits, thanks, Will, what tools do you each use to help managers and leaders appreciate the gap between their perception and of where psychological safety is versus the reality of where it is, but doing so in a non-judgmental, fact-finding way. Does the approach shift based on the experience level, seniority of the manager, or can it be more universal? So what tools, what moves, what plays do we each use and consider to help close the perception gap between where folks might think psychological safety is versus where the reality of where it is individually and across a team? Karolin, do you want to start, and we'll go to Minette, and I'll add in anything else as well. And thanks, Will, for the great
Jump
question.
in, and Minette, then you can add. I think one of the things which is helpful for anyone who's leading is there are numerous studies about that leaders always overestimate the level of psychological safety in their teams. So they always think it's better than it actually is. And the tricky thing about psychological safety is it's living in the experience of the other persons. It's not how you would like it to be or how you perceive it. It's how others perceive your behavior. And so it's helpful for leaders to understand this is a systematic overestimation. It's not kind of their fault that not their individual situations, and then having the courage to really go and to find data. For example, asking the teams, doing surveys, and this can be done. It can be done with Amy Edmondson Scan, but it can also be a very quick and self-made. A few questions, Mentimeter. It needs to be anonymous, but just take the temperature of how actually people feel about psychological safety and be open enough to learn that the reality might be a little different from what you expect or from what you would love the reality to be. However, if you have the openness and the self-awareness, also the humbleness, and to embrace, I can do something about it, this is a great starting point. And then there's all sorts of things you can do about it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Karolin.
I will add one thing, which is that, and this is advice I've given to leaders I've worked with, is like, yes, do the surveys. And if you already do surveys, add some questions to them, specifically about psychological safety. I think if people are used to being surveyed, they're more likely to respond truthfully. I have heard anecdotally people say, like, even with a psychological safety scan like the Amy Edmondson, like, I don't feel safe that it's really anonymous, right? So like, even supposedly anonymous, people don't always tell the truth. And I say, like, with or without a survey, one of the best gauges of levels of psychological safety is to observe what happens in your meetings. Because in your meetings, you see, if you do nothing, and if you just let them run the way they usually run, you will see who speaks and who doesn't, who gets interrupted, who gets ignored, who gets all the airtime. And that's already a barometer for the level of, like, if there are a lot of people who never contribute or who are very quiet, like, something's going on there, because I will guarantee you those quiet people have something important to say. They just can't find a way to say it.
Yeah. Are there ideas being shared? Is there feedback being given?
Yes.
With curiosity and generosity? Are we disagreeing? I call it the 3Ds of the true test of psychological safety in a speak up culture is the quality of our debate, our dissent, and our disagreements. Are they productive and generative?
And if that's
and
not
respectful?
happening at all, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And even, are we admitting mistake and taking responsibility for it, knowing it will lead to improvement, not punishment? So
Exactly.
I love Karolin, just sort of this table stakes of no matter how good you think it is, just know that it can always be better. Exactly. Like we never wake up, Will, one morning on a Tuesday and we're like, psychological safety, nailed it. Like, we're done. Like, no. Just wait till the afternoon. Just wait until tomorrow. Relationships, the world, it's dynamic. It forever changes. Business changes. Relationships change and evolve. So I love, Karolin, just for every single leader, whether you are the leader who's listening or you work and support those leaders as well, Will, just this perspective of no matter how good you think it is, it can always be better. Mm-hmm. Like this, This isn't Spinal Tap where this one goes to 11, you know, and there's always more. So we never arrive, we're always arriving, and it's far better when it is earned, not claimed. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Carolyn, yeah.
Yeah, psychological safety is really a practice. It's not a destination to reach, right? And once we got the question, ah, so much to do, isn't that a hard thing to do? And actually, Minette and I talked about it. No, not at all. It's something which really gives a lot of joy. It gives energy, it gives joy, it makes life so much more enjoyable. And I'm going back to this new book you mentioned, the thought load. I think it's really decreasing thought load.
I think psychological safety is that lubricant that makes the organization run and the relationships run better, more efficient. It allows you to move at speed, that speed of trust concept that Stephen Covey speaks of
Yeah.
as well. The other thing, I just spoke with my friend Zach Mercurio last week, who has the book The Power of Mattering, and oftentimes we'll hear folks go, I don't have the time to do that. And it's like, you don't need to add any meetings. There's no like psychological safety hour. Like this is just something that you work on embedding in your interactions. And as you work on embedding them in your interactions, the breathe before reacting and turn it into a response, the listening, all of these things and all the plays that are in the book, you just integrate it. There's no added time. It's just integrating it within, and it creates so much more space and possibility. Even with the rapid, crazy times of change and uncertainty that we're in, I think this is one of the things that you can control and influence for the better is this feeling of psychological safety that you can help generate in the people around you.
Exactly. You said that so beautifully. We do get that question a lot, the same question. We don't have time for this. And that's exactly the way you answered it is exactly how it's not something off to the side. It is
Yeah.
just everyday behaviors. And to Carolyn's point, it does make it easier, not harder.
Yeah.
Because when, I'm now thinking about the thought load idea. I haven't yet read Leanne's book, but I will. It's on my list. When you have low psychological safety, so much of your mental and emotional energy is tied up in, dare I speak? Should I speak? What's going to happen if I speak?
Protecting.
Yeah, you're protecting your reputation, etc. And when that goes away, you have room for creativity and all the other things, right?
Yeah, yeah. Which one of the things I hear about psychological safety is there's no fear of repercussion from anything. I want to push on that because there should be some repercussions for certain things that we say and do, but it's acting within the realm of the values and the integrity. But it does allow us to take risks. Psychological is the vehicle that enables us to experiment, take risks, try new things, yes, and build upon. So awesome. I have one more thing, and then we'll come to the both of you for last words here. And Will gave us a thanks so much, great insights. Thanks, Will. I hope that helps. Keep us posted. Speaking of like the minute actions that we can take, one of my favorite things that I learned from Dr. Becky Kennedy, who wrote the book Good Inside. So Dr. Becky is a famous psychotherapist, and she does family and child-based psychotherapy. But she's also realized that there's no better analogy to effective leadership as there is to effective parenting. And like, not that we should treat our employees as children, but the same principles that allow us to be effective parents, I think enable us to be effective leaders as well. And one of the like scripts, because you're all about plays and things that you can try, that she goes through is, Carolyn, I'm now envisioning that listening exercise where someone's coming to you and maybe they're bringing like a real serious concern interpersonally or about a project. This isn't just about the weather or the traffic, but they're unpleased. There's displeasure around how something's going. And one of the plays that she introduces is it's 3 steps. One is thank you. Like, I'm really glad that you brought this to my attention. Especially if someone's coming at you and they're like pissed off and their first response is thank you. You're like, oh, okay, I'm actually being appreciated. The second thing she says is, I believe you. And Minette, this goes to your point around validating. right? I believe that your experience is your experience. I'm not trying to change that. I think so often we come with an issue and we're no butted or we're yes butted, and it totally denies the compassionate experience. Like, thank you for bringing this to my attention. I believe you. Tell me more. And it just like changes the dynamic. There's a pause, there's a breath, and it can become a productive. So that's just one sort of bit of plays that came to mind as we were chatting through this conversation as well.
Oh, yeah, this is so valuable, and yeah, I see many parallels to what we are suggesting in our two books. And yeah, it is about I'm believing you. Doesn't mean I'm not convinced of my viewpoint anymore, but I understand your viewpoint and your perspective, and I believe that it's true to you, right? If and that doesn't mean I need to agree. However, and this is something I think we often um, yeah mix up understanding and agreeing, and really going full in onto the understanding part. However, then maybe you still have your own viewpoint and you still think it's not what I think. I think the better solution is XYZ, and now I understand exactly what you mean, and I share now my perspective. And I think that would make that would make our dialogues, our discussions so much better.
Yeah, at work, at home, geopolitically, within our own countries. I mean, sheesh.
Yeah.
I'm so with you, Carolyn. Minette, what else comes to mind, and then I'll begin to close us out here for this conversation.
No, I really feel like we could close it out. I feel like I've said what I need to say on that topic. So yeah, let's close it out then.
I hope it's either Rithu or Ritu says, thank you, this has been so helpful. Thanks to all those who have tuned in, whether live or on the recording. These are the two books, the Psychological Safety Playbook and the Psychological Safety Playbook for Changemakers. This is your Series 100 book. If you're just curious and want to learn more, you've heard psychological safety, it feels like it's worthwhile, this is the one. If you want to go deeper and you're already embedded in doing the work, this will help take it to the next level. Of course, I hope my book, Speak Up Culture, might help as well as another practical resource to bring your practice of building healthy and thriving cultures to life and to the next level. Minette and Karolin, thank you so much for joining from the West Coast and from Germany as well. Final words to the both of you, and congrats again on book number 2 amongst the both of you. We'll see what else might occur in your work and in this series of work. But yeah, last words to you, Minette, and then to Karolin, and
Sure.
thanks all for tuning
Well,
in.
first, thank you for having us. We agree that your book, Speak Up Culture, is a wonderful complement to our book, and we're big fans of your work. And the thing that I want to say as a wrap up is that, we are living in incredibly challenging times. And, given like here I am in the Bay Area, and it's like every day you wake up to more layoff news of tech companies laying off 10%, whatever. And this is when I think so many leaders and team members are thinking now is not the time to work on a great culture. Now we have to work on everything else, and it's all AI all the time. And what I want to say is this is exactly the time. Like, you've laid off a bunch of people. What about the people who are still here? How are they going to do good work? You have to invest in culture every single day. And as we have all said, it's not something off to the side that takes more time. Just small shifts in how you do everything. Very small behavior changes can make all the difference. So now is not the time to run from this work. Now is the time to go headfirst into this work.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Karolin.
I would underline everything Minette said and add that culture may sound big, but what it actually requires us are small things we can do, feasible things, doable things. Listen a little bit better, a minute of listening better, or maybe one yes and instead of one yes but a day. So in our books are full of small things we can all practice, and little by little with consistency we can really change the culture. Small acts has
Yes.
power.
The last thing that I'll just say is, if we're sitting in whatever seat that we're in, whatever's going on in your organization or the world around you, it can feel defeating at moments. But know that our experience of culture is far more local than it is macro, right? We can work in an organization that, regardless of its reputation, our true and real experience of culture is in those 10 to 15 people that we spend the most time with. So regardless of the organization you work with or for, know that you have an influence over the feeling, the culture, the engagement, the safety, the fulfillment of the folks to the left and right of you, whether that's physically or virtually. So we hope this conversation has helped you consider and do a few more things today that allows you to create more psychological safety with the people around you. Thank you, Minette. Thank you, Karolin. Check out their books, the Psychological Safety Playbook. The link is in the comments, and I'll see you again soon. Thank you all.
Thank you, Shed.
Thank you, Shed.